Imagine you could dive back in time just by looking at a photo of the moment or place you want to go to. You just need to look at it and can immediately take over the person taking the picture at that moment and experience what they did. You could see all sorts of places and moments long past and even get insight into many different people and experience a part of their lives. But that's where the problem comes in. Your mind gets transferred into the person taking the picture, and all your feelings and experiences get mixed with theirs as long as you're taking control of them. Maybe you get lucky and experience the happiest moments of a person, or you see and feel every horrible thing that has happened to someone on top of your own feelings. Maybe the person suffers through their job every day, or they just got rejected. Maybe they still deeply regret a decision they made when they were young and that has eaten away at them their whole life. Or your mind gets transferred into the body of a person going through the worst moments of their lives, having just lost a friend or family member and living with depression every day. You may want to help the person get over their pain or stop these events from happening, but you can't. You're not allowed to change the past in any major way. You have to just keep watching what these horrible experiences do to the person your mind's in right now, while at the same time feeling everything they go through as if it would happen to you. You don't want to endure this pain anymore and return to your own self, but you can't, because this is what you do for a living. Okay, I'm sorry for this intro, but I just wanted to do something like that since finishing Link Click Season 2. Time travel or something similar to it, of course, isn't something new to anime, and there have been many anime that use time in an interesting way. But I haven't seen one use time travel on the way Link Click does it, especially with the focus on the more human and personal side of all the people Cheng Xiaoshi takes over. Also, sorry if I'm mispronouncing any names, and I'm going to call Link Click an anime even though it technically isn't since it's Chinese, but it feels like an anime and was released on Crunchyroll. It's also on multiple anime database sites that don't include animation similar to anime from other countries, but include Chinese animation like Link Click, so I think it's fair to call it an anime. If you haven't seen Link Click, the story revolves around two people, Cheng Xiaoshi and Lu Guang, as they take jobs from different clients visiting their photo studio, who give them a picture, usually with the wish to know something that they can't figure out anymore, and Cheng Xiaoshi then goes back to the moment the picture was taken and tries to find the information their client wants, under the instruction and help of Lu Guang. This information can be anything from a secret recipe to the whereabouts of an abducted child. This is more or less how Season 1 starts and what the main characters do at the start of the story. What I really love about Link Click is that it focuses a lot on the people whose lives you get to see when going back in time. Even though Cheng Xiaoshi is the one controlling the person, since he shares their experiences and feelings, you still get the weight of some moments as if you would just watch them without another person sharing their body. I'm a fan of time travel stories, and that's what got me to watch Link Click, but what the show focuses on a lot and does best in my opinion, especially Season 1, is the focus it puts on every character. I feel like many stories, especially ones involving time travel, often focus more on their concept than on each of the characters involved. I'm not saying that the characters in these stories aren't as important as the time travel aspect itself, just that they play more into the time travel narrative than the other way. With Link Click, even though the time aspect is important in every episode, I feel like it serves as more of a way to get to know these characters, not only the people involved with every new photo, but also the two main characters and other important characters like Xiaoling. I like both approaches to a story, but I feel like there are fewer that go the way Link Click does with its first season. I'm also oftentimes a bit skeptical when a story starts in a mostly episodic way like Link Click, and even though there's already something set up for a future storyline at the end of the first episode, Season 1 follows mostly an episodic structure with each new photo. I generally prefer stories that follow one long story and don't use the monster, or in this case picture of the week format, and feel like it's way harder for a story to be entertaining with every episode for me if it follows a similar structure. I like JoJo Part 3 a lot, but after some time the story can feel like it drags on and you wouldn't lose much if you cut out a few encounters. With all the other parts, the encounters felt like they advanced the story more, even if they weren't all that important in the end. The problem I think many have with episodic storytelling is that some episodes, when cut out, wouldn't change anything for the progression of the story or its characters, similar to filler, and I think that's a big reason as to why shows that involve episodic storytelling get dropped a lot. I've heard of way more people dropping Part 3 than any other JoJo part, even when compared to Part 1, which some think you should just skip. And my favorite anime Gintama gets dropped by many during its first 50 or so episodes due to its episodic structure. But like Gintama, where you probably won't recognize that all of its early episodes set up the characters and themes for future, heavier and longer arcs, Link Click uses its episodic structure to set up and develop its overarching plot that then culminates in the finale of Season 1 with its insane cliffhanger, and then evolves away from an episodic structure into the long story structure present in Season 2 and most likely in the hopefully soon to be released Season 3. Every single story Cheng Xiaoshi and Lu Guang lived through in season 1 plays a role in the final episode. I have to say, by the way, that it was a strange decision to title the 6th episode 5.5 and not episode 6, because that way some thought that it was a bonus episode or recap and not a normal episode, and this episode plays a decently huge role in the finale of season 1 and season 2. It's one of the main reasons we got so many amazing fights in season 2, since this is where Cheng Xiaoshi learns to fight. It's just strange that way, and I can't stress enough that this is a regular and important episode. Another thing is that if you haven't watched Link Click and also haven't seen any other donghua like me, please watch Link Click in its original language. It's not only that the original language works best with the show, but for some reason they changed both the opening and ending for the Japanese dub, and something like the end of season 1 with its cliffhanger just doesn't hit the same without the original ending. Following season 1's mainly episodic structure, season 2 tells one long story that will most likely continue the same way in season 3. And with that there are some new advantages and disadvantages. I think one of season 2's biggest advantages is that since it only tells one long story, there's way more time to get to know new characters and give them more of a complex personality than some of season 1's side characters. Since the story also doesn't need to introduce new characters every 2 or so episodes and focus on a new photo with its own new rules for what Cheng Xiaoshi has to be careful of, there's more time for other things like reoccurring characters and of course something like fight scenes. Link Click's art style always looks beautiful, but its animation can range from kind of stiff to really interesting, and season 2 definitely looks the best. There's more use of animation in a unique way, and even though the fights won't look as good to some when compared to fights in recent shonen, Link Click excels at its choreography. The fights in season 2 are just so well choreographed, and I find it just great to have fights that don't involve any over-the-top shonen power systems, but instead fights that impress you not simply with their flashy animation and art style, but the amazing use of hand-to-hand combat. There are so many breathtaking fights in anime, but rarely do you just see 2 or 3 people fighting against each other with nothing but their bodies and the things they find lying around. Season 2 changes up the format that season 1 established, and you get a lot more focus on side characters, and I think that works in its favor when looking at how everything comes together in the last few episodes. I love the way season 1 ends with its plot twists and abrupt end, but if I had to choose, I think I prefer season 2's build-up and final confrontation. Since you get more focus and screen time on every character involved in season 2, its final episode felt more emotional to me compared to season 1's more shocking finale. Like I said, I tend to prefer more long-term storytelling that slowly builds up compared to an episode structure, and that's why I really like season 2's final episode and what it sets up for season 3, which by the way I think has the biggest potential for an interesting story so far, with everything regarding Lu Guang and the remaining antagonists. But I still think that so far Link Click works best when it follows smaller stories and not only one arc spanning an entire season. All the fights more focus on fewer interesting side characters, and all that build up to the final confrontation and the way season 2 ends are definitely great in my opinion, and I think there are some really good scenes in the second season, but the structure also includes some disadvantages for me that season 1 didn't have. Since there's more focus on the present time with its different factions, that also means that there's almost no time travel or going into different pictures. Cheng Xiaoshi's ability to go into the past is still one of the most important parts of season 2's story and a huge part of why the antagonists do what they do, but it isn't used that much at all. And while there are some emotional scenes involving the new characters, season 1 gave you insight into all kinds of different people from different age groups and backgrounds, and I think that's a huge part of why Link Click was so interesting to me. Seeing all of these people with their different struggles in life and how they affect their characters was one of my favorite parts, and that's hugely gone in season 2 in favor of a more focused look at a few characters, which I still think is great, but it feels like it's going into a more typical anime story structure with its fights and conflicts compared to the more unique approach of season 1. I still like it and it feels like a logical evolution, especially after the end of season 1, but I slightly prefer the first season structure. Season 2 delivers a more serious tone, and you can see this best with characters like Cheng Xiaoshi and Xiaoling, who were more comedic and upbeat in the first season. They still have comedic moments, but since the second season follows one story with a mostly similar tone to it, there are less comedic scenes and more serious and dark ones. I think another part of that is that since you have fewer scenes with Lu Guang, especially in combination with Cheng Xiaoshi, there are fewer of their conversations that often included the more fun side of Link Click that worked as a good time and distraction to anything tragic happening. I also think that if Lu Guang had been more active, the second season could have ended in just a few episodes, but I understand that it's not that easy. I think if season 3 takes the best parts of both seasons and leaves out some minor things like these long recaps in every episode in season 2 and combines what worked, we could be looking at an outstanding season 3, and I hope they take all the time they need since this isn't an adaptation and they can't just adapt an already established story, so more time to not only animate everything but also deliver a good story is definitely better than if they rushed towards season 3, but I'm optimistic, even if it takes some years. I made this video because I just finished season 2 and wanted to share some of my thoughts, so thanks for watching. Oh, and there's another thing I think Link does really well. The story oftentimes goes in a positive direction and everything seems fine, but suddenly new information is revealed, or a new character enters the stage, and you hear that music. Maybe you're thinking, what, already? Or you're shocked at what just happened and try to understand the situation while you're looking at your screen in denial, but it's already too late, because then the episode just ends.